My name is Flora Trebiolino. I'm the chair of the African Diaspora Nonprofit Network. We are very happy and pleased that you could join us to celebrate such an important milestone in the journeys of people of African descent in the nonprofit sector. First, I would like to acknowledge God, the maker of the heavens and the earth, who allocated to every people group on earth their own land and space. And in this same spirit, I acknowledge that I'm pleased to be here today, that is in Beaumont, on the traditional territory of Treaty 6, the homeland of the Pas Hayes Aboriginal Band and the Métis. I acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. We thank them for sharing this land and its rich resources with us all. We are all treaty people. The peace treaties bind us all. We'll call upon Esofadi here to perform the Canadian anthem for us. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sofa Foster, for that beautiful performance. So before we get going, I would just like to ask all of us what we think Black History Month is. So what is Black History Month and why is it important? In short, Black History Month celebrates our history, our heritage, and honor. If you live here today and you don't remember anything, I would like to remember these three big H's. The Black History Month is celebrating our history, our heritage, and our honor. Our history dates back to the very beginning of human history, being the first people to establish the blueprint for civilization back in Egypt, Put, and Kush. Our history dates back to the very beginning of human history. We also celebrate our heritage. We acknowledge the diversity within the African and the African diaspora community in terms of culture, faith, and experiences. It is very important to delineate our own heritage to inform and correct diluted narratives. The third age we celebrate is honor. We celebrate honor by recounting the sacrifices of our forebears, the accomplishments of the present generation, and laying a foundation of progress for future generations. We celebrate honor by affirming that Black History Month is also the remembrance month for people of African descent everywhere. We remember the tears and sufferings of those who were sold into slavery. We remember the perpetrators, both sides of the Atlantic. We remember their tenacity and accomplishments despite their challenges. We remember their contributions to the world. We remember not to repeat past mistakes. We remember never again to allow another race to subjugate us. So is Black History Month relevant? Yes, it is relevant. Black History Month is relevant because it is a prophetic voice in our chaotic world to reincarnate, if possible, truth with a new set of vocabulary and appreciation of life, providing the guardrails we need to correct the mistakes we make as we move forward as humans. It reminds every community that there is hope to be realized, there is peace to be pursued, there's equality and equity to effect positive change, and harmony to be harnessed. I will now invite Dr. Nomanzwe Siziba to introduce our moderator, who will help our speakers share how the intersections of history, heritage, and honor have shaped, framed, and informed their work as non-profit leaders. Dr. Nomanzwe.
Thank you, Flora. Greetings, everyone. I'm Dr. Noma, a board member at ADNN. I am so pleased to be here with you today, celebrating such tremendous work that is being done by my fellow Blacks for the betterment of others. I'm thankful for this opportunity to introduce our moderator. She has worked with not-for-profit organizations in Canada, Zambia, and Zimbabwe for a decade, building capacity and monitoring and evaluating projects in the human rights, peace and reconciliation, gender equality, and humanitarian emergency management sectors. As the senior manager for grants programs at the National Canadian Red Cross, she promotes equity and diversity in granting practices for the not-for-profit sector in Canada. She is also devoted to promoting African literature and is the founder of the Harare Book Club, an online international book club that connects readers to authors across African countries and diasporas. Coupled with all this, she also holds a Bachelor of Arts Honors degree in Political Science and French from the University of Alberta, and a Master of Science in Development Management from the London School of Economics and Political Science. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Rumbi Zinyemba.
Thank you, Dr. Noma, my friend, for the lengthy introduction. And welcome to you all. Thank you, Flora, for inviting me to moderate the session. I'm going to get us started right away. Before we get started, can I just make sure everybody is muted, even our speakers, and you only unmute when I call on you to speak. It'll just help everything go smoothly. So I'll just give us a second to check all of our settings and make sure everyone is muted. All right, perfect. It is a beautiful day to be here, to be celebrating Black History Month, to be talking about this important work we're doing. Like many of you, I'm privileged to work and play in Treaty 6 in Canada, and you know, we've made this place our home. And I'm happy that we can talk today about the impact we're making here as well as our homes abroad. So we have an incredible lineup of speakers for you. I'm going to introduce them. And as I introduce you, I'll already jump into asking questions and you can take some time to answer them. We don't have a lot of time. Please take about a minute to answer your question. If you see me unmuting or starting to wave my hands, you're taking too long. And we might ask Laura to help to mute you. But thank you so much, and let's get started. And I will start by introducing our first speaker. You give me a second. Okay, our first speaker is Patricia Gumbo. Patricia lives here in Edmonton amongst us, and she is the founder of the Sihle Sizwe Foundation, which does incredible work. I'm sure you've seen them. You've seen the kids that they work with and the music that they're doing. They're really making an impact in Edmonton. Patricia, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and take a few seconds to tell us about the work that you're doing, and then also tell us about your connection to Edmonton and why you've made it home. Please unmute, Patricia. You're still muted, Patricia. There we go.
My name is Patricia. I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I'm the founder of Sihle Sizwe Foundation. And I moved from Edmonton all the way from Quebec, which is Montreal. In Montreal, I lived there for a year. I never felt at home. And when I got here to Alberta, I knew this was my home. For some reason, I knew this was my home. And we started the Sihle Sizwe Foundation in 2016, and we work with immigrant youth, we work with seniors, and we work with our communities. And it is the impact that we are making in these young people and teaching them about our culture, which is mostly Zimbabwean culture, but our African culture, our Black culture, that is really making a difference to us. So I've made Edmonton a home to me only because it was not only because it was English speaking. That's why I moved from Quebec. And here is the place where I met my husband.
Patricia, we lost you again. If you just unmute. Thanks.
I met my husband here in Edmonton, which makes it a bonus. And two of my children were born here. And I've lived in Alberta for 22 years now. So this is the best half of my life. I spent it here, and the diversity of Edmonton makes the difference. So Edmonton is my home, and I know my grandchildren will live here for the longest time.
Thank you, Patricia. It's interesting you say you've now spent the better half of your life in Edmonton. You never think that's going to happen when you move here, right?
No, I thought I was going to be here for 6 years was the maximum for me.
Yeah, I think we all know that story. Thank you so much. And I'll move to our second speaker, who is Nee Coney. If you've lived in Edmonton, if you've attended any Black History Month events, it is impossible that you have not seen Nee. He is key in our community. He's the founder and executive director of the Nile Valley Foundation. And he has just been the cornerstone of sharing about Black history and sharing about communities amongst Black people in Edmonton. I'm going to let Nee unmute and answer the same question if you tell us about your connection to Edmonton and why you've made it your home.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, welcome to everyone celebrating Black History Month. This is a very special time of the year for people of African descent. So I applaud all the people who have made contributions to make sure this particular event happens. Thank you and welcome to Black History Month. And to your question, why am I here, or why have I chosen Edmonton against so many other areas of Canada? The same reason that brought me from Ghana to Canada 53 years ago. and that is the idea of building and sharing community. I had a choice to travel to England or United States, and I chose Canada. And I did it at that time because I knew it was a new country. I knew it was big and large, and I knew the population was small. And I knew there are relationships to be built, houses to be built, communities to be built. And I am an African, and therefore I'm a Freemason. I like to build. And Africans are the greatest builders the world have ever known. So I came here purposely to make sure that together we build a nation that we can all count on each other. And that building process is going on. Part of this conversation is part of the building process. So I came here having lived in Toronto for about 40 years, and I thought reference was made to Western Canada as redneck territory. So not much is known about Black people who settled here in the 1800s. So I thought if I were to come here, I would have an open playing field where I can participate in the building process. So today, since 14 years arriving here, I've seen that we have achieved much. The Black community is taking its place. We are becoming part of the Alberta communities, and our voices are being heard through conversations such as this one. So I'm very happy to be part of this conversation, and I continue to spread my wings in Edmonton, and I hope the final analysis will be part of a greater community. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Nii. And you raise such important points. As we're talking about the diaspora network, we're also reflecting on those who settled in this land, the Black people who came and settled years and years ago. And that's the research that you're doing. Thank you for bringing light to that. I'll move to our next speaker, who's Okama Ekpe-Brooke. I'm privileged to know her and to have worked with her through Alberta Council for Global Cooperation in many ways. She's the founder and executive director of the African-Caribbean Heritage Alliance and has incredible experience in the not-for-profit sector.
Today we just came back from mountains. We have the whole of next week.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. And Okama, I'll just hand over to you to tell us a bit about yourself and to answer the question again, your connection to Edmonton and why you've made it your home.
Okay, thank you, Rumbi, and good afternoon, everyone. My connection to Edmonton is we're actually partly from, well, I'm from Nigeria, but my husband is from Lacombe, Central Alberta. And so, you know, having traveled around the world and thinking of coming back to Canada, we decided to settle in Edmonton through friends who we had started our overseas assignment together way back in 1996. Who, when we were thinking of coming back, they invited us, you know, to look at Edmonton. And okay, there's a lot of that. Okay, thank you. So, and when we, you know, when we looked at Edmonton, my husband actually attended the University of Alberta, and we looked at the direction that Edmonton had taken in the last 10 years. 10, 15 years, there's been a lot of, you know, discussions about diversity, inclusion, about looking at, you know, the issues facing the Black community, people of African descent. And then a couple of years ago, also following the discussions on the decade for people of African descent, we realized, I realized that the, you know, the Premier and also the Mayor of Edmonton were very engaged in that conversation. And actually last year, the Mayor made, you know, opened up or adopted that declaration. So those were some of the, you know, things that drew me to really making Edmonton our home. And of course, meeting people like Flora, who has helped me to understand how to navigate the, you know, the registration of our nonprofit sector here in Alberta has been very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Okama. And both you and Patricia have mentioned the importance of family and connecting us to Edmonton and bringing us here. But most importantly, the decade of people of African descent and how Edmonton has embraced this through the mayor and through all of the cultural events we see happening. Thanks for bringing light to that. Our final speaker is Helen Agbonisson. So Helen is the founder and president of Africans and African Descent Friendship Club of St. Alberta. She's a wife, a mother to 2 lovely kids, and she's here to talk to us about the work that she's doing as well in St. Albert. Helen, if you could unmute and tell us about your connection to Edmonton, to Alberta, and why you've made it your home.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Flora, for having me here, and welcome everyone. And as I was introduced, I live in St. Albert. St. Albert is in the northwest area of Edmonton, so it's in the fringes of Edmonton. And we've been living in St. Albert since 2010 when we came to Canada. We came to Canada because we love the country and to give our kids a better life. And we find St. Albert a very welcoming and friendly city. It has a small town feel to it. When you're in St. Albert, you just feel as if you just know everyone, you know. So it's like a small town feel, but a city at the same time. And we love it here in St. Albert. Are you hearing me? Okay.
Yes, please continue. Yep.
Okay. So we just love it here. I work with the city of St. Albert, and not-for-profit work that I do, it's on a volunteer basis, trying to help preserve and promote the African culture here in St. Albert. And we see a lot of support from the community for the work we do. And Black History Month is a very important time where we use the opportunity to project the African culture, tell our stories, and also at the same time help to reduce racism within our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. And what you've said about promoting Black history and promoting culture, it ties into my next question for everybody, which is, tell us about the organizations that you work with, that you volunteer with, and tell us about the African diaspora communities that you are working within. What makes them special, and what role does your organization play in them? I'll just call on Patricia again. I'll go around in the same way. So Patricia, tell us about the diaspora network that you are rooted in and the work your organization does in it. If you can unmute Patricia, thanks.
I'm the executive director of Sihli Sizwe. What makes our work special at Sihli Sizwe is the results that we get. Especially during the time when COVID hit, we got funding of the Red Cross. And when that time when kids were isolated and when everybody didn't know what to do, we were able to give tutoring lessons to most minority groups. And these tutors were not only tutoring kids, but they were also acting as mentors. And it is the feedback that we got from our community that these kids were getting the best tutoring, and it was a one-on-one tutoring that we were doing. And it is the feedback from parents, the feedback from the students that we got that makes our work worthwhile. And also we do youth mentorship. Right now we just started another program that is called Boys to Men, when fathers get to sit with young people, especially our Black fathers. They get to sit with young people and talk to them. And knowing our history in Africa, a father was somebody who was feared, but to have our fathers the fathers of our children get to sit with their children and tell them about our history, about who we are, so that our history is never lost. That makes our work worthwhile. And right now, we are also have a program for youth where we teach our kids our African Zimbabwean music. I know it's all over Africa, but we are teaching them the Zimbabwean way where we play marimba. And we wish that is going to get our kids to remember who they are, to remember our culture so that they don't get lost. They know that they are descendants of Zimbabwe, they are descendants of Africa. So we would never want our history to be lost. We want them to be proud of who they are. So what was the other part of the question?
No, I think you've hit it well, Patricia. You've told us about what work you are doing within your African Diaspora Network. And I find it interesting you talked about getting results and listening to the community about what they need and making sure that you're meeting them there. And that's so important in the work that we do in not-for-profits. Thanks for that. And I'll just go to Nii to ask the same question. If you tell us about your organization, your role in it, and about the African diaspora community that you're rooted in. You're still muted. If you can unmute, and Patricia, if you could mute your mic.
Okay now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, my role personally is like the role of most directors in a given organization. And that is to bring my infectious spirit to bear and let the people who work with me understand where we are going. And if our journey will benefit the collective or the human society. And so it's been the idea of championing an idea, and that is to bring the Africa diaspora to the forefront of the African descent conversations. Because quite often, most of us from Africa, we never realize the people who showed us we stand to have the honor to go to university, the reason to ride the bus, some of the things we take for granted. And since we incorporated the word diaspora into our community engagement, it has brought that conversation to the forefront. So today I'm very happy that since I've been here for the past 14 years, the idea of the African diaspora and what they have gone through for the past 400 years and incorporating the year of return into our conversation, I'm very happy that everybody is beginning to chip in and to tell their story. So the act of telling story is one of the strengths of people of African descent, and I'm glad we are on the straight path. Thank you.
Thank you, Nii. I'm hearing about storytelling, preserving the story, and appreciating all of the work that's gone into Black people being part of community in Edmonton. And that's incredible work that you're doing. Thank you for that. I'm going to move to Okama with the same question. If you tell us your role in your organization and the African diaspora community that you're rooted in.
Thank you. My role in the African-Caribbean Heritage Alliance is as a founder and president. And we have legal offices in the Caribbean, and we have also in Nigeria for Africa. And so here in Canada, in Alberta, our work is to connect the narrative, the positive narrative of people of African descent, teaching our children to be proud of who they are, showing up, being represented at the conversations where issues affecting, people of African descent, Black people, anti-racism, discrimination. Actually, I just finished a town hall session here at City Council. I'm here at City Hall, where we just finished a session with people from Halifax who are helping us to dissect the issue of anti-racism and discrimination and the role that the government should be playing. So I feel that my job here is to ensure that our voices are heard and that our voices will be integrated into public policy, and that we would be able to be, we would have access to the kind of support that we need to be able to actually have implementation of these issues, and funding also to support small organizations. The other role that I play is, because I have a passion in dance, just sharing my dance experience with young people. And I'm very happy to tell you all that we're having Helen's event in St. Albert, and yesterday we had a training with 15 young people who will be performing on stage with me, showcasing our rich, vibrant, African culture. And this year we're traveling to Egypt. So just to see how young people are embracing this, what I call intergenerational knowledge sharing, and being the ones to sort of, be the forerunners of what we're talking about, what we're doing, really keeps me very happy and hopeful. Thank you.
You're going to have to show us your dance moves before we let you go today, Okama. No, thank you for that. And Helen, I'll end this question with you. So if you tell us about your role in your organization and about the diaspora community that you work within.
Okay, so as I was introduced, I'm the founder of the group, and I will say the president, or will I say the chief messenger of the group. So basically, this group was formed by how I met people on the streets within St. Albert's. Yeah, I met people in the Walmarts, Superstore, the library, and I got their names. And by 2019, when the idea came to form this community, I reached out to those people and have formed the community. So it's constantly looking for opportunities for people of African descent that live in St. Albert, in terms of getting them jobs, helping them with settlement issues, and at the same time forming a community that is the face of people of African descent here in St. Albert. And we put together lots of different events. Some of them are internal to us, like our It Takes a Village to Raise a Child, our youth programs. We have programs for women and for men, and it's basically for people in our community to feel they have a community that they could call theirs, like a village, because everyone needs that social support. So we create these events and have people attend, network, connect, and get like the children. We have adults that mentor them, talk about career, talk about life in Canada, things to avoid. So these are the different things that the community of African descent here in St. Albert, the things we do. And Okama had mentioned that she's teaching kids dance that they're going to be performing for Taste of Africa this year. So we've been having this.
Sorry, Helen, if you could just unmute again.
Sorry, I was muted for some reason. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? Are you hearing me?
Helen, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Helen, we can hear you. Hello, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Helen, we can hear you.
Maybe
Okay,
she can hear.
Now, thank you. For some reason, it's like all the Zoom was muted. So these are the kind of things that we do. We organize events to promote African culture. For instance, during Black History Month, we were in lots of schools. I think our director responsible for youth mentoring and community engagement, they've organized close to 10 presentations in different classes here in St. Albert, in the St. Albert Catholic and the St. Albert Public Schools. So they've organized Black History Month presentations to tell our story, because there's some parts of Black history that is not in the school curriculum. And we hold, during Black History Month, we partner with the St. Albert Public Library, which we've done since 2020, to put on movie nights and conversation circles, to have people have conversations on racism and things like that. So these are just some of the things that the African and African Descendants Friendship Club of St. Albert does here in St. Albert to preserve and promote African culture and support members of our community. In addition, we look for opportunities for members of our community to volunteer, because that's one area that we want to have our community members involved in volunteering. We volunteer at the food bank here in St. Albert, and sometimes we also go to Edmonton to volunteer when we don't have spots and we have availability, and we have members of our community involved in different aspects of things that happen here in St. Albert. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen. And I laughed a little when you called yourself Chief Messenger, and you all have such interesting ways to look at the way that you are leaders in your organizations. Nee was talking about he's the guide, he's the one who gives direction in the organization, storytelling, and ensuring we have our voices heard on political platforms. And Okama, you talked about how you're making sure that Black voices are heard in political platforms, in discussions about racism, in discussions about diversity. And I'll just come to you with a question, Okama. How can we bring about healing in our communities around all of these issues you've talked about, especially using these networks that we are growing through your organizations, through your working community? How can we bring about healing in the face of issues such as race, racism, and lack of diversity? Okama, are you there?
Oh, sorry. I think what we have realized is that racism, anti-racism, discrimination, and to basically destruct this issue is by educating our people. First of all, educating, and by so doing, we have to be open to having conversations, and conversation where we are open and calling out, not being afraid to call out the elephant in the room. We have all of these issues, but for some reason, sometimes, we tend to, go around the issues. One of the realizations recently is that we need to just put out everything and be open to disagree on some of the things that are being discussed, and that puts everyone in a safe space to know that whatever they're saying, it's not something that's going to be taken, personally. We're just trying to find medium to deal with it. So that is one way of healing that I have found in having these open dialogue sessions with everyone, just enabling everyone to understand that we are trying to find ways to address common issues, and it's not a personal thing. That's one thing. The second thing is, as I mentioned earlier, just bringing the different people together, because sometimes when we as adults think that we're speaking on behalf of youth, speaking for youth, or speaking for the disabled part of our community or the elderly, it doesn't really represent their voices. So one of the healing things I find is when I actually have an elder in the room, I have a youth in the room, I have somebody that represents that particular group to give voice to those issues, and just doing things, connecting in my community. My community here in Edmonton, I found that they want to include me, but sometimes they don't know how to include me, because You know, I'm not in the spaces, they're not in my spaces. We see each other on the street, we wave, we say hi, but that's about where it ends. So what I've done is gone out of my way to actually find out what is happening in the community, volunteering on the community board. And one of them is my Reaching Neighborhood. I'm on the board, on the community league board, and the league stepped forward to actually invite our organization to celebrate Black History Month with them. This is the first time we're going to be doing it in that neighborhood on the 26th of February. And for me, that is a call to all of our people living in that neighborhood that they can use this platform to be represented. And in a way, it provides, you know, a space to talk and to heal, because that is how they get to know what we're about, what we'd like to see changed, and what role they and us can play in making progress on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Okama. And we talked about the youth and making sure we're not talking for them. And Patricia, I know your organization is also working with youth. So I'll throw this question to you as well. How are you bringing about healing? How can we bring about healing from issues such as racism and lack of diversity in our spaces? How can we do that through our organization and through the work that you're doing? Please unmute, Patricia.
When we talk about racism, I always look at it as poverty of the mind. Because when we don't know the other person, mostly it's about fear, it's about how we feel about ourselves. When you look at another human being and seeing them as less than, that means it's something to do with you. So I think the thing is we have to get to know each other as a people, creating those relationships within the community. Recently, we went to play marimba at an old age home, and we're playing for these elderly. Some of them, they've never been close to a Black person. So it was only the Black kids who were playing this marimba. And one lady innocently comes and says, "Oh, you guys are so good. You are playing music without notes. Now I'm going to talk to you. I've never spoken to a Black person." It is because we don't create those relationships to get to know each other, to look at the neighbor and see them as human beings. So I think having to meet as a people, realizing the diversity that we have, that it is a privilege, it is an enrichment that we have in Canada to have everybody in one space, and let's get to know each other, know your neighbor, know the people around you. Look at a Muslim person and be curious enough to know, who are they? What do they believe in? It is then that we'll grow and have this humanity, because there's only one race, which is the human race. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. And that's such an interesting way that you've put it. Step out of the communities so that we can actually get to know the others. And Helen, you spoke about how your community is like everybody knows each other, right? And it's a small community in that way. I'm interested to know how you are making those bridges with community, how you're bringing about healing for the Black community within St. Albert.
Okay, so what I would say that the way St. Albert is, people see St. Albert as a predominantly white community, and people of African descent, you find out that when we come into communities like us, we are more about settling, you know, as new immigrants settling. And over time, by the time we are done settling, we get so accustomed to a particular routine, which is just go to work, go to church or mosque, and go back home. And so we end up not fully integrated into the community that we have found ourselves. For instance, so you find out that lots of people of African descent long before now never knew that we had lots of people of African descent that live in St. Albert. So for you to see those people of Africa, for them to know that St. Albert is not just a predominantly white community, that we have African descent, lots of them in our community, is to create an event around them. Because it's difficult for you to just say, okay, there are lots of activities that happen in St. Albert that bring people together, and you're not likely to see, most times over the years, I used to find out that I might end up being the only Black person in the whole crowd. You understand? But we had lots of Africans. So sometimes they don't even know what's happening in the city that they've called home. So it's to bring that information to them to say, hey, listen, there is a mayor's update happening today, so that you know, at least be aware. And if it works for you, you come out to show your face and show participation in the community. Now, talking about bringing healing, I would say I know people have gone through different racial issues here and there. And so how we are bringing healing is to make sure that we are telling our own story. It is our story to tell, because if we don't tell our story, people will not know what we have gone through. You understand? They will just see us like just any other person on the street, and they will not understand that people of African descent have gone through years of discrimination, years where they have not been included into things, years where they were not seen as a people to be recognized, to be brought on the table. So what we're doing is, one, get them, tell your story. You can tell your story any way you want to tell. We're encouraging parents, when there is something happening in your kid's school, show up. When there's Black History Month, do your best to also go and share the Black history story so that people are aware. And when it's time for us to project our culture, that's a beautiful part of our lives that we need to share with other people, that beyond what has happened to us in the past, we also brought something beautiful. We have a culture, you understand, that has different dimensions to, you understand, that different dimensions of our culture. So that is how we are bringing healing. We are bringing awareness that we are people, we belong to the community, encouraging our community to show up, you know, come out and be seen. You know, it increases the boldness, so that if in future a child is being harassed or doing something, the child already is building confidence through these things that we're doing. And the child knows very well that you have a community that will show up for you. If you are being harassed in your school, we will take it up. I want to give an instance. I belong to a parents group for my kids' school, and we found out that it's like there was somebody that was like tacitly kind of hiding under a particular user on TikTok, and talking about Black kids with their hair and things like that. If I was not in the space where this thing was happening with parents there, I would never have known that that was happening. You know, so that's the message we're trying to tell our parents, that you should get involved. As much as, yes, you have to work. Some of us have the challenge of some of us having 2 jobs to try to meet up, but you have to make time to be involved in what happens in your kids' school. Because by the time I saw it, and in that particular parents group, I'm the only Black parent inside that group. But of course, they have other Black parents that are in that class. I had to write to the school and say, some kid is going on anonymous, using your school's name and harassing Black child. Can you find out who that person is? And we want to bring down that account. For the fact that I spoke out, within 1 week, they had to call the class, whoever was in that class, that thing you're doing is bad, and they were going to involve the RCMP if you do not bring down that account. It happened. Now, if I decided not to be involved in what is happening in the school, in the class, I wouldn't know that some child is being bullied. in the class. So what we are doing is getting our community members of African descent integrated into the community, know what is happening in your community and participate. We help by bringing information. School council is happening. The Senaba School Board is meeting. We need people to join and bring us information as much as possible. So that is how we're bringing healing. And when we have youth events, we talk to our children, be bold, don't be timid. And if something is going wrong, it's somewhere, don't keep quiet. Let your parents know, let the community know. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. And you've talked about shattering the perception that we are new in these communities. We've been here a long time and making sure we are involved in community. And I think, Nee, that is part of the work that you are doing in researching the history of Black people within our communities. So I'll just flip this question to you as well. How can we bring about healing in our communities through the kind of work that you are doing and we're all getting involved in?
Are you talking to me?
I am talking to you, yes.
Oh, okay, good. There is so much we can do, but to change the perception from the idea of a single story, how Black people have been known across the world. And that's a heavy burden. And creating spaces within our community where people will be compelled to come to us, to listen to us, to even pinch us, to feel that, yes, we feel pain. And bringing a change is when you recognize your brother's pain, when you recognize other person's pain, when you take the pain upon yourself. I remember a famous Jewish person in Germany who says, when the Nazis came for the Unionists, we sat down and did nothing. When they came for the women, we sat down and did nothing. And by the time they came for us, there was nobody to stand up for us. So it's about recognizing your brother's pain. It's about sharing your story. And a famous Nigerian, Achimamanda Ngozi Adichie, talk about the danger of a single story. It is when people feel that once you are an African, you are from a poverty-stricken area of the world. So how do we take off this garment and put on a new garment that we are members of an ancient civilization and we made tremendous contribution to human development and civilization? So yes, to know me is to love me. And quite often we do not understand the country in which we live, which is Canada, which is the only country in the Western Hemisphere that has a multicultural ministry. So you don't come here to be a Canadian, you come here to be an African as part of the Canadian fabric. So this is where Canada is the most beautiful country in the Western Hemisphere, by providing spaces to be yourself, because we have brought with us our cultures, our heritage, and the government gave us the space to exhibit it. So here we are as a rainbow country, that Black, brown, white, that is the beauty of Canada. So let us recognize the opportunities we have here and use it effectively so that our children will not have the same view about their Blackness. So stand up boldly, take your place, is what I can say.
Thank you, Nee. And while I still have you, I'll ask my last question for this segment before our break. If you can tell us about anyone who's mentored you and helped you along the career path that you've taken, along the path you've taken within community. Have you received any mentorship, and who's helped you to reach where you are today?
I'm from a very small place in Ghana called La, or LA. Some people call it La Valley. And I'm a product of community. So everywhere I go, I look for a community to belong to. In fact, my name itself represents a community. So whether I'm there physically or not, I'm there emotionally and spiritually. I'm driven by knowing that I belong to a community. So community is very important to me. And so when I came here, I reached out to a community, which is the Francophone community. And there was a professor called Makana, who was the dean for Faculty St. Jean at the time. And I told him about the ideas that I have in establishing a diaspora history library here in a magazine. And he began to tell me about growing up in Montreal, what he had to go through. So there was something we had in common. And one day he invited me to Gandhi Foundation organization on campus because his wife is from India. And I was wondering, why should I go to an Indian meeting? But I went. And they gave me a piece of paper to put down my name. And when I look on the paper, everyone on that paper is a doctor. So there was DR to every name. So what I did was I put DR and then I put my name. So later on, they said I should stand up and introduce myself. And I stood up. You talk about boldness. Yes. I stood up and talk about what is it that I do. And if anybody is wondering, the DR means I'm driven with passion. And up to today, if you go to my Facebook, you will see that it is there. It says driven by passion and commitment. So yes, commitment to community is everything. And let us not waste our time on racism, because the issue of racism depends on us. Once we have a strong community, once we support each other, once we buy from each other, these little things that we waste so much time on as racism will diminish, because people will respect you for what you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I say Dr. Nee for that? I'm also going to add DR. Helen, I'll come to you with the same question as well. Tell us about any mentorship you've had on your journey and who you've connected with to help you along.
Thank you very much. I must say, I remember when I started in 2019 and I spoke with Flora, sorry, I was asking her, I don't even know how I was going to do Taste of Africa. Flora was the first person that told me about the Taste of Africa grants, you know, the heritage grants. I never knew. She was saying that's somewhere. She gave me ways to get it. You know, she's someone that I've relied on. I've had different stresses because it's not easy managing people. It's one of the most difficult things. I've had times where I've chatted with her, the stress I have with board members and things like we talk. She said, just pray about it. You know, so she's one person I know I have really spent time. I've had other people that I have spent time to talk with who say these are the different challenges, because as we speak now, we have a funding challenge. It's not easy to organize events and look for funding and things like that. You know, there are people that I'm trying to like connect to say, how do we get funds to run the organization, to get staff? Because most of us all have our full-time jobs, and this is just volunteer. And the organization is growing in such a way that we need to get people to at least work, even if it's part-time, to run the organization, because it's a lot of work. Like Okama was saying yesterday, I had to finish from work, go home, begin to pick kids and other kids that are coming for to come and practice, get keys to the place we're using. And so all those things, in addition to the work we're working full time, it's a lot of work. So I've relied on lots of people for information and mentoring. And I'm so thankful to you, Flora, for opening up. Because another thing we find out with what we do is lots of people hoard information. If they get grants somewhere, they try not to let other people know about it. They just hoard the information. You know, when they get information, as it is now, I know Okama and what she does. And if I see somebody is asking for what Okama is doing, I'm already putting her name. There's some places she doesn't know that I've put her name. I've told the person that this is the person that did it. Even without her knowing, I give her a number. I say, please contact her. There's some people that are free like that they share your information. If they know something is going to benefit you, they know very well that you're not doing it personally for yourself. You're doing it for a community. You know, they share information. There are lots of people like that, which we are so grateful and thankful for, those genuine people. You know, for instance, when I was doing the Canada summer job that we did, I've never done that thing before. I bugged Patty Gumba, like, please, what did you do here? How did they feel this? Because it was another type of work entirely that I've never done. And somebody helped me last year to fill out the form. So this year, I didn't even know how to do it. So I had to begin to call Patty. How did you do it? What did you put there? You know, so I thank you, Patty. I've had to rely on her to get information on especially the accounting, how they do accounting and things like that. So I rely on a lot of people, and they are my mentors in the work I do, and I remain grateful to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Helen. And I love that we're all drawing on each other as mentors, even though we're all peers and colleagues. That's incredible. And Patricia, we've heard how you're helping others. Who has helped you along the way, and where have you received mentorship in your path?
I have received mentorship from a number of people. One of the people that I went to when I was starting the organization is Sarah Hashi from Somali Canadian Women's Association. She told me about the positives of having an organization and the downs, which were really, really down. You know, she was like, you have to brace yourself for this. It's not an easy road. And I've also relied on Agnes Samo. She is not here, she's in Ghana. But she's one woman who's encouraged me, who has worked with me, who has partnered with me in most of the programs that we do. Also, I've also relied on my pastor, who've given me hope not to give up. There are times where I would say, this is just too much, and she'll say it gets better with time. And now I would say I've had a family around me that has encouraged me, that has been with me, and also my husband, who's been my pillar of hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. And I'll end the segment with you, Okama, if you can tell us about mentorship and support that you've received along the way. You're still muted. There you
okay. Yes, just like everyone else, I have a lot of mentors, and I'm still looking for more mentors because I believe life is a process of sharing and learning. The day I cease to exist is when I do not learn a thing. But in terms of this journey where I am right now, my biggest mentor has been my husband. He has been a pillar that I've stood on since we were married and traveling different parts of the world, where I've encountered different forms of discrimination and racism, and he's always there, just saying, you just gotta push through. So being back here, he also connected me with people that could help with organizing our foundation and getting things going. I would also give thanks to Dunia Nur. She's the co-founder of an organization called ASEC, Alberta Council for the Alberta Civic Engagement Council. And when I settled in Edmonton and I was talking about what I wanted to do, she said, you've got to register, you've got to connect with these networks. And I know the work she's been doing has really impacted on the policy level, on having legal frameworks for our people to tie into. And I just, when I keep growing up, I want to be like her. And of course, Flora, who I mentioned, just jumped in and without expecting anything, just decided to, guide me on how to register, and even went out of her way to, lead me to where I can get the relevant forms. So grateful for that. And, people like Helen, who are consistently indeed pushing the envelope on where we can get access to support, to resources, and just being there for our people. It's not easy, but there are people like this who are always on the front line, just doing everything that is possible to make it happen. And the last person I'd like to mention is Franklin from the Diversity magazine. Franklin runs around every day, sharing information about upcoming events and amazing people doing things, and just paving the way for us to show up and showing up meaningfully, and getting recognition, and even how to get justice in the cases where we might find ourselves in, find ourselves facing issues that are very difficult to address ourselves. He connects us to, legal systems where we can have it answered. So yeah, long ways, but really grateful.
Thanks for coming. I don't think I've been to a Black event without Franklin in a corner somewhere.
Right.
I hear you on that one. I'm going to call back Isufua, who's going to give us a spoken word performance just to break up our discussion a little bit. Essie, do you want to unmute?
Thank you. This poem is called Immigrant. That you packed bag and baggage and came. You have done well. That you did not just come to scout, but to settle. You have done well. That you did not just come to settle, but to contribute. You have done well. That you did not just contribute, but in contributing, you found you and you found me. You have done well. That in finding you and finding me, we defined a country. You have done well. Your accent accentuated our communication. It infused it in shades of rich hues. From the snowy caps of the Rockies, through the bogs of the Boreal, to the living skies of the prairies, over the sprawling swaths of the Great Lakes, up to the glacial guardians of the Arctic. You have gained more leverage leaving than staying. You have gained more leverage holding up than caving in. You are not an abject immigrant. You are not an abject native. Anyiku, you respond, ya'i. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good.
I keep hearing in my head, you have done well, you have done well, you have done well. That's awesome. Essie, is there any way where we can find your work or find your poems or listen to you reading out your spoken word? Find your poems or listen to you reading out your spoken word?
I'd have to forward that to Flora, so you could contact her regarding that work.
That's awesome. Flora, we look forward to seeing more of her work. That's incredible. Thank you. I'm going to call back our speakers for just a couple more questions, and these ones we're going to zero in on the not-for-profit sector. So we want to understand what it is like to organize as not-for-profits in Edmonton, in Canada. Many of us belong to diaspora groups that are just groups that sit around and talk, but you've taken a step further and you've actually registered your groups and you are organizing in an official way. So we want to hear a little bit about your journey in doing that, the advantages and the disadvantages, and what you've seen along the way. So I'll start with Patricia and go around again the way we started before. Patricia, if you can tell us a little bit about the not-for-profit environment in Edmonton, what's exciting about it, what advantages are there in joining it, and why you decided to organize in that way for the work that you're doing.
Our organization was formed in 2016. And for us to register, it was mostly to realize that we had to be registered to get funding. For the first 2 years, what we were doing, we were baking scones with my friends to raise money. We had to do dinner events to raise money. And then one friend told me, you can register the organization and try and apply for funding, which is very difficult because as you are starting an organization, they want to see what you've done. For you to qualify for any funding, they want to see what's in your bank account, what was your budget for last year. For a new organization, that means it's very difficult to start an organization. So it takes patience. Also, it takes understanding what to do, because at the same time, now you have to do accounting, on which there is a different way of doing accounting for nonprofits. You need a board. How do we find a reliable board? How do you find reliable board members? So all those were challenges, but it took time for us to really grow as an organization to get to a place where we were able to do programs. So the journey wasn't easy, but for the first few months, we got our first grant. It was very small. It was 6,000, I guess. But for you to grow, we had to make sure that you do a very good accounting system for your program, so that they recognize that you know what you are doing. Also, we had to do a lot of thinking around what's the reason for our organization, to narrow down exactly what you want to do, because you cannot say you are doing everything. So I was lucky to go to the city of Edmonton, where I work, and I spoke to one lady. Her name was, I think she's retired now, Mary Galvant, who was able to advise me on really narrowing down what I wanted to do, and telling me, and also telling me about how to name the organization. Because for me as a Christian, my organization was looking like a Christian organization or a church. And she said, Patricia, this is not going to help you with funding. Anyone who's looking at your organization, they think this is a Christian organization, whereas our organization wasn't Christian. Our organization was helping immigrant people. So it's all those things that you have to look at as you are starting your organization. What is it that you are doing? And when you are registering, register it. Is it a nonprofit? Is it a for-profit? So all those things, you have to really do your research. And as you are starting getting your board members, at first I didn't know that I needed to get board members who are going to be helping. You need board members, people who are going to be helping, who have knowledge or expertise in certain areas, so that they work with you, whether you want an accountant, you want a secretary, you want a treasurer. Those people have to be knowledgeable in what they are doing to make your work smooth, and be willing to work without being paid, because board members are not paid. So it was so difficult until I started working with ECVO and ACGC. That's where I got most of the information. When we started networking with these other organizations, that's where we started meeting people. And then you ask them, how do you do this? How do you do this? So the most important thing in nonprofit is networking, getting to learn from other organizations, getting to know what is it that grantors are looking for. So there is a lot of learning that is involved. There are a lot of challenges that you can encounter. Also, nonprofits work with budgets. As long as your budgets are low, that means you are not getting enough money for bigger projects, because they realize that you haven't handled this much money. How can we give you a lot of money? So it's also one of those things where you have to work and really make your things straight, especially during accounting, reporting, board leadership. Send your board members for training so that they know what they are doing. So it is a challenge, but it's a work in progress if we are willing to work on it. Thank you.
I hope we're taking notes. You've mentioned so many key points. I hope we can share these notes with everyone after. While I still have you, Patricia, is there any one piece of advice you wish you had known before you had started out on this not-for-profit journey?
Oh, I wish I had realized that working with teenagers is very difficult. Because most of my work, I work with teenagers. And sometimes I'm like, next year I'm not doing this, but I look at them, they're like, oh, they call me auntie, because in Africa we call each other auntie. So next year, how are we doing this? And you're like, how can I live it? But it's worth it.
Thank you for that, Patricia. Nee, you're next. If you can tell us about the not-for-profit environment, how it's been for you, what the advantages of organizing as a not-for-profit have been or some challenges? You're still muted, Ni.
Am I okay now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. We talk about the importance of community to we African people. It's a special an area that we constantly have to look at, because I believe once the community is strong, everything else will fall into place. But coming back to your question about the nonprofit sector, history tells us that much of social change that we have been able to achieve in North America is based on the efforts of the nonprofit sector. And it is where your voice can be heard, because we never used to be in parliament to bring the issue to the forefront. So the voices have to come from the community, and that's where community engagement comes in. So we are doing most of the work that we will not have the politician to do. And the system will only hear you out when you are shouting from the community. So it is the main platform that we have as a minority group in Canada or in the US as well. So if you go back to reference African Americans, much of the achievement, whether to go to school, whether to vote, whether to go to live in an area of your choice, was coming from community members who stood up and said, no, we ain't taking it. So I take the community work quite seriously. It is the only platform that we have. And now that we have injected another sector into the public engagement, is the nonprofit called social enterprise, meaning we can also make money doing community work. So it's getting better, and I applaud the kind of people who come to do community work. It is very difficult. It is emotionally draining. And if you don't have the kind of support, emotional and spiritual support you need, you may not last as a public servant. So I think I applaud all those who have stepped up to bring an effective change to our communities. And one day soon, you will see how much you've achieved based upon your commitment. So yes.
Thank you, Ni. Is there any piece of advice you wish you had when you started out?
I was naive to know that there will be challenges, a pushback from my own community. And I wasn't prepared for that, because I thought I was representing my community. But for the past 13 years, I have learned that much of the pushback is coming from my own community. And so I think we have to understand that all for one and one for all, so that we don't have to be fighting each other and then allowing the things that we need to do to go undone. So yeah, what I would say is that know that there will be challenges, and know that some of the challenges will come from within, so that you will be prepared when it comes. You are not surprised and be able to deal with it. Yeah, but collaborating and leaning on each other is very important. So yeah, we must support each other, because it's a road less traveled.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that, Ni. I'm coming to you now with this question as well. Tell us about your experience organizing as a not-for-profit, the not-for-profit scene in Edmonton, and the advantages of being organized in that way.
Thank you. Organizing in Edmonton has been a bit easier for us because we have the experience internationally. And so we've been able to do activities with several communities, cities in Alberta. The thing that I really needed to be clear about in registering legally in Edmonton or in the province was the value that it would add to our organization and empowering us to be able to continue to engage with the communities. Because initially we thought about just operating as a chapter in Canada, and whether it's going to be a national or provincial chapter. And then we came on that obstacle that if we were just a chapter, we would not be able to have funding. what Patricia already said, to be able to do our work. So we took that decision to register legally. Now, one of the lessons, or a few of the lessons in operating within the nonprofit sector, as was already indicated, that you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan, annual plan, broken into quarters or whatever you want to call it. And those have to be outcome impact based. It's something that I realized a lot of nonprofits didn't really know about. And therefore, even when they do have funding, they were not able to implement in a timely manner in order to achieve those outcomes, those goals. And so when it comes time to requesting for more funding, it became very difficult to be able to do that. And the sustainability of funding as well is one of the challenges that a number of nonprofits have spoken to face, because going back to the same donor and not being able to monetize the activities they're doing in order to bring in resources into the organization means that they're always looking for funding. The other thing is communication and visibility. Showing visibility of the donor is something that has eluded the nonprofit, and a lot of donors, want to see how you're using the money and the impact that is being made, and to show them up. But that wasn't being done. So we're definitely learning from that and incorporating into our work. And then, of course, monitoring and evaluation. Many nonprofits, are so busy with just doing the actions, and there's no time to reflect on, what has taken place, and evaluating, and then using those lessons that have been learned in, planning new programs. The other thing too that I've found in Edmonton, and we're still navigating to see how it would work, is how to be able to get funding for staffing positions. I find that the funding is mostly for activities, and therefore we really don't have leverage in terms of paying for a staff or a few staff positions to help with the work. And so those of us that are in management positions, the founders of the organizations, we put ourselves out there. We're using so much time and energy, and we can't get we can't get anything, and then we can't pay for someone to help us with some of the work. So that is something that I believe we need to look at collectively, how we can be able to get some staffing support for some of the organizations. I think that's what I had on my list.
Thank you. And if you had any piece of advice you wish you had when you were starting out, what would it be?
Piece of advice is be aware of the toll it's gonna take on you, as for many of us as parents, as professionals in our field. And so when you're investing 3/4 of your time in starting and just navigating the pathways and trying to get it going, that is valuable time that one is taken away to be able to earn a livelihood for their family, for themselves. And so I would advise that one really takes a very deep look at the process and what it's engaged, and make sure that they have the support, whether it's with family or their mentor, and going into it. Otherwise, one could get depressed, and if you don't have someone to lean on, it becomes very, very, very lonely, very difficult process.
Thank you for sharing that. Helen, we're ending the question on you. So if you can tell us the experience of organizing as a not-for-profit in Alberta, in St. Albert, in Edmonton, what the advantages have been and any challenges along the way.
Thank you very much for that question. I would say that when I was going into this, I did not envisage all the things I was going to see. You know, I did it from just an open heart. I used my money to register the association. I just got different people I thought had, oh, everybody's have passion for these things. And it's when I went in and over the years and I found out that it's a lot more than I expected. And one thing that I learned is picking board members. It's a very important thing that one has to look at it, because you never know who along the way will become a problem in the whole scenario. So that's one thing that I never learned. See, when I got in and 2 years or 3 years in, I now started having so much stress. You know, some of the things I didn't know. And just like Okama said, you can easily get depressed if you don't take time with these things, because you can get so overwhelmed with so many things. So registering first is important. And what kind of registration? Either if you're going to register as a charity or a not-for-profit society, you have to know what is involved, which you will be able to manage, because their reporting styles are all different depending on how you register the not-for-profit. And I'm so also very thankful for my husband that, you know, is able to accommodate all the things, because so many things that you have to, the house could be sometimes very disorganized because you're packing things for Taste of Africa, you're doing this for different events, you know, and those things most times revolves around the leader, you know, so it could be very, very overwhelming. And so if you do not manage your life and your family, it could cause a lot of problems. You know, one thing I'm so thankful for is that I have a job. So I don't rely on the not-for-profit for anything. It's more or less my time that I'm giving to organizing it. So I'm so thankful to God that I have a good husband. I also have children that support me, because like yesterday we went for the practice. I had to drag my children. Oh, my son is almost getting to 15 and he's telling me that I don't want to do this dance anymore. I've been dancing since 2020. You know, getting a boy to dance and he's getting to 15, it's like, he doesn't want to do this dance anymore. But I have to keep pleading with them. Say, please just try, please. You know, so it is a lot of work. It affects virtually every aspect of your life.
Thank you.
Know?
And if you could have had any piece of advice in the beginning when you were starting out, what do you wish you knew?
What did I wish I knew? Not to have so many people on the board at the initial time. That's one thing I wish I knew not to have. And networking is a very, very important aspect. You have to ask questions. Don't go alone. Ask questions. If you don't understand, look for people that are in the area. Ask questions, you know, and network with other people. Go out to support other people, you know, because how most people of African descent, they just have their association. They just stay within themselves. They only need people when they want those people. Go and support other people, you know, don't go solo, or support other people. And that's where you connect with the resources that we have in the African descent and diaspora community.
Thank you, Helen. And you and everybody else has spoken about how while you are led by passion, it is hard work. You're doing it on the side of your desks while you're doing your other jobs, while you're raising families. You've talked about the toll and the emotional you know, baggage it can bring. And, you know, we just want to congratulate you on the incredible work you're doing. But my last question to end our discussion today is about you and yourselves. You know, when you're not doing this important work, when you're taking a break, what can we find you doing? What will you be doing when you're not deep within community work, deep within your jobs? What do you do for fun? What do you do to unwind and to just heal and rest and restore yourselves? And I'll start with Patricia. Patricia, if you're there, can unmute.
Hello.
Hi, we're talking about what you do when you're not doing all of this work that you're doing, when you're resting.
When I'm resting, most of the time, I go to church. I do a lot of gardening. And I take some time to be with myself, have a quiet time, and spend time when I'm reading, playing music, just to relax, because there is so much burnout in the non-profit industry. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks. And what music do you play, Patricia? So we can add it to our playlist.
Mostly it's gospel music, but
Nice.
also my African music.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Nee, you're laughing. What do you do to unwind and to make sure you're not burnt out?
I do love visiting the riverside. Water is very important to my spirit. And I know that no community or village is set up in Africa without a small river by. So rivers become a place we go when we are depressed. We go to see God face to face, because looking at the river or the sea is how you begin to appreciate the Creator. And nothing calms me down than when I'm around water. So, and that's one of the things I'm missing coming from Toronto to here, because in Toronto, the lake is everywhere. Every city you go in Toronto, the lake is there. So I come here now, I don't see any big river where I go and, just stand there and look at the water. I don't have that, and I'm missing that a lot. So
Me, I'll take you up on that, and we'll go for a walk in the river valley. There's a lot
I'll be ready.
walks.
I mean, you got me if you take me there.
It's my favorite place.
So, there's no wonder that our human body consists largely of water. So water plays an important role. Even to hear the sound of water drop is powerful. So yeah, the place that I come to, my spirit is where the water is. And so I'm a water person, or I'm a river person. And of course, we take our name of the organization by the longest river in the world, which is called Nile Valley. So I can see the connection. Yeah.
Thank you, Nee. Okana, what do you do when you're? I think you said you dance. Is there more that you do to unwind and to prevent burnout?
Yes, absolutely. I'm a creative person. Lots of passions, but the one that really, stay close to my heart is dancing. And by doing that, I listen to a variety of music. I love music. So when I listen to the music, then I'm drawn to interpret the music through dance. And I've been teaching and also, turning that talent into monetizing that talent. So I am available to perform at your events. Let me advertise myself a little bit. So yeah, if you want to do an event, whether it's a, wedding reception, birthday party, that special birthday party, or even, to teach some kids at school about our different African dances, I'm available to do that. I'm actually officially starting my dance classes next week, the 21st, at our community league. So that is a structured class. Yeah, so that's what I do. I also love to cook. Cooking is for me is a relaxing way to end the day. So with COVID and just working online, I've had the space time to actually do a lot of cooking And so something that my husband and I always laugh about, I told him, I said, you do everything else, I'll do the cooking. And so when we do that, the household is happy. And so, yeah. And then connecting on social media, because I have contacts all around the world. I love to travel. We've gotten a lot of, world education through traveling and working in different countries. And so I keep in contact with my folks through social media. So yeah, you can find me on social media at Okama BDQ and on Facebook at Okama Ekwe. And I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me. Just type in Okama Ekwe group. So let's connect. Thank you.
Thank you, Okama. And Helen, if you can close it out for us. When you're not so busy with your work and your community, what are you doing?
Taking a nap.
Yeah. The most truthful response.
So sometimes I just don't want to do anything. Just like when I'm done here now, I just want to lie down, sleep. I don't want to think about anything because there's so many things running in my head at the same time. And so if there's anything I want to do is just shut down my brain, stop everything. As I'm
important, Helen, we need to all slow down and rest. Thank you. Thank you for ending our conversation on that note. And thank you to all of our speakers for such an engaging conversation. And we've learned so much about how to organize as community organizations, as communities in the diaspora here. I'm going to call upon the kids choir to give us the Black National Anthem.
Oh,
Thank you, Flora. I think you were going to play a message from our MLA, David Shepherd, at this point.
Oh, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to join all of you here with the African Diaspora Nonprofit Network. I'm so sorry that it's virtual and on video that I couldn't join you at an in-person event. Unfortunately, a lot of things happening at the moment that are keeping me busy, but I do look forward to a chance to see many of you sometime in the future in person. But it is a pleasure to celebrate with you as you share these stories of impact and you celebrate the contributions of African diaspora-led nonprofits here in the Greater Edmonton area. You know, there's a long history of Black communities, Black Albertans supporting each other here in our province. It goes back to the first Black diaspora to settle here in Alberta, the Exodusters, those folks who came up from the southern United States, Black men and women and their families looking to escape the discrimination that they faced and build better lives here in a new country. The Exodusters, as they were called. They came up and they formed settlements like Amber Valley, Campsie, Keystone, or Breton. And in those communities, they worked to build community to support each other. Here in the midst of what was in some ways, hostile physical landscape, certainly the harsh winters, some difficult work, clearing land, farming, building their settlements, and also in the sense that, unfortunately, they did face here discrimination. Indeed, folks that pushed back and did not want them here. So they worked hard to support each other through their churches, their community groups. The Amber Valley Picnic would bring people from miles around. Other provinces even would come to celebrate there, to watch their baseball team play. They worked to support each other and not just build community, but do other things too, to provide services, supports, help feed families in need. Black communities in Alberta have a long history of looking after each other. And there's been a long history of organizations that sprung up to do that too. The Colored People's Protective Association, now that was a group that was formed in Jamaica but had branches around the world. There were two right here in Alberta, one in Edmonton and one in Calgary. There's the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. That was the first trade union in Canada that was organized by and for Black Canadians. They did a lot of work to support people in the community, but not only that, they fought for better wages and working conditions, and not just for themselves. They worked to get legislation changed for everybody. They worked together with the Calgary Labour Council on that. They advocated for legislation to prohibit discrimination in employment and housing. There was the Alberta Association for the Advancement of Colored People. They supported Black Albertans by intervening in cases where there was things like harassment in workplaces or discrimination in housing, schools, and public places. And we saw individual Black people set up and work to support others as well, right here in Edmonton. Hattie's Harlem Chicken Inn, run by a woman, Hattie Melton. It was a safe space for Black community at a time when many other restaurants were segregated, would not allow Black people in. At Hattie's, everyone was welcome, and she employed young Black women and men so that they were able to earn money that they needed to go and get a post-secondary education. Black communities in Alberta for a long time have been working to give back and support each other. It is a rich, proud history, and we know that has continued as we have seen immigration from Caribbean countries. We saw organizations step up to provide community, to support each other, to be able to integrate, to settle, to be able to meet their needs while they build a better life here in Canada. And it has continued as we've seen immigration from many countries in Africa. And indeed, that's what I discovered after I was elected in 2015. You see, growing up here in Edmonton, I actually didn't have much connection with Black communities at all. For my father, he immigrated here from Trinidad. He had converted to Christianity when he was about 16 years old. And the form of Christianity he converted to, he felt called for him to give up most of his culture and heritage. So Dad came here to Edmonton and he connected with the local church, Sharon Gospel Chapel, and they provided that community and that support for my dad. And that's the community that I grew up in. So I did not really have many connections with other Black communities, or in fact Black people in this town for quite a while. But when I was elected in 2015, I found out I was only the third Black person ever elected to the Alberta legislature. And I began to be invited to events with various African and Caribbean communities and heard from them. Wow, we didn't know there was a Black MLA. And hey, we've never had an MLA come here before. So I made it my commitment then to begin to build those connections, to learn from and see how I could support and empower Black communities here in the province of Alberta. And I was fortunate to have so many communities be willing to sit and speak with me, tell me about their experiences, their concerns, to be able to sit with some of the elders and story keepers from those original Black settlers here in the province of Alberta and learn that history. And in that learning, be able to understand how I, as an MLA, could work to raise the voices, raise the visibility, the representation of Black communities here in our province. How I could work to connect Black communities together, to work together collaboratively on things that they had in common, to work to ensure that Black communities had fair and equal access to the grants, the programs, the services, supports that we have as a provincial government. And to work to show them how they could advocate for their interests and work together. It's been an incredible opportunity for me to learn. And I appreciate the support that I've received, how they embraced me, and how so many of your communities have helped me get back in touch with my own heritage, my own roots, and my own place as a Black man here in the province of Alberta and in my role as an elected official. And it's been wonderful to see the work that so many of you have been doing in our communities for so many years. It was wonderful to connect with many of you during the COVID-19 pandemic. When you stepped up, you saw a need in your communities. You saw that the food and other resources that were being provided weren't always culturally appropriate, weren't always suitable for the families in need, weren't always accessible to the families who needed it. And you and so many others that I know stepped up to meet that need. You organized to collect food. You organized to get it delivered to the people who needed it. You organized to raise the funds, to solicit the donations to make that happen. And it is that work that I understand has led now to the Africa Diaspora non-profit network. And that is wonderful to see. That is one of the things that has been so encouraging for me to see, is so many in the community coming together in so many different ways to support each other, to raise our voices and see how we can ensure that our community's needs are met. Having the support of folks like you, having folks like you going out and creating these organizations, doing this work, that provides for an opportunity for all of us in government to work with you and support you. You are the ones who know your communities best. You know their needs. You know how best to get the services, the supports, the resources they need to them. Thank you for stepping up and doing that work. And I look forward to continuing to support you and work with you in all of your organizations and all of the opportunities we have. And look for ways that we can come together amongst organizations across communities to support all Black Albertans and ensure that everyone has a fair and equal opportunity to thrive and build a good home here in our province. So thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to you today. I wish you all the best with the rest of the event, and I look forward to seeing you again in person soon.
And with that, we'll go right into our inaugural ceremony. I'm going to call back Flora to give us an introduction to the African Diaspora Nonprofit Network.
And thank you very much. And I just want to roll on what ML David Shepherd said, that we want to be able to bring everybody together across various communities of the African diaspora to work together. And as I was listening to the very delightful and enlightening conversations with the various nonprofit leaders, the key words that stood out were networking, collaboration, psychological or mental support, growth, sense of community, collective voice, connectivity, support for each other, and a sense of community and sustainability. And that's exactly what the African Diaspora Nonprofit Network has been formed for. So the ADNN collaborative group started with a vision meeting of African Diaspora Nonprofits, representatives, and community members, spearheaded by the Teduku Molinu Foundation for Community Development in 2019. The nonprofits who participated were Now Valley Foundation, Silizizwe Vineyard Organization, Everyday Love Ministries, Efficiency Solutions, members of the Ivory Coast, Ghanaian, Trinidadian, and Cameroonian communities. The purpose was to investigate challenges of small to medium-sized African diaspora-led nonprofits in Greater Edmonton. The articulated challenge was twofold: underfunding and lack of collaboration. Therefore, finding a common ground to address community issues by broadening understanding and awareness of the issues, fostering new partnerships, and collaboratively developing and implementing projects were identified as the way forward. Also, the disproportionate impact of the COVID-19 pandemic created a collective awareness of the health and economic vulnerability of the African diaspora community. And that was when NID, CONE, brought together various nonprofits to come together to form the African Diaspora COVID-19 Task Force. It also exposed the collective crisis of sustainability and effectiveness of the African diaspora-led nonprofits caught in systemic underfunding, the need for African diaspora-led organizations to come together, as our MLA just said, in solidarity to transform our community became even more urgent. In response to this, the African Diaspora Nonprofit Sector Network was officially registered in 2021 as an official voice and hub to promote collaboration and build capacity needed to impact the African diaspora community constructively. The African Diaspora Nonprofit Network has since received funding from the City of Edmonton to undertake a research project called System Mapping of African Diaspora Nonprofits to promote collaboration. We invite any Black nonprofit here today to connect with us to participate in this very important research. We ask that you inform other Black-led nonprofits not here today about this opportunity. If we need to table our challenges to the government, we need to have a very good statistical data to be able to do that. And this is what we are trying to establish undertaking this project. So we encourage you to engage with us. You can go to our website, it's adnn-roda.org, or you can find us on Facebook, or you can email us, and we'll be able to work together. What we've heard today highlighted what our challenges are, and we are part of the Canadian nonprofit sector, and we need to be able to have a strong African diaspora nonprofit sector that can represent our challenges and navigate us to sustainability and effectiveness. So let's work together to bring positive and representative changes in the African diaspora nonprofit sector. And so thank you very much. And I hope that we will all come together as we've spoken today so loudly about, and work together to support each other to be strong and have a very strong African diaspora nonprofit sector in Canada. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Flora. And congratulations. And I'll call on Ni, who's the vice chair, to introduce the ADNN board. Ni, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you very kindly. The board members are all chosen by the spirit of Africa. So let me try to introduce them to you. First on the list is Flora Trebi Oleinu, who is chair, John Ajayi, who is secretary, Ayo Olamedi, who is treasurer, Bola Badmos, who is director, Huguet Luzambu, who is director, No Mazwe Ziba, who is director, Okama Ekpe Brook, who is director, and Nita Wakoni, vice chair. Thank you.
You sleeping? Why are you sleeping here?
Thank you for that. And I think we're going to give each of the board members just few 20 seconds to introduce themselves very briefly so that we can all know them.
I think I've already introduced myself, so I'll hand over to John to do his introduction. Or Ni, you've already introduced yourself, right?
I have already, yeah.
So, well, those who are here should introduce themselves. Would John introduce himself?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is John Ajay. And what else should I say?
And you're the secretary.
I'm the secretary, thank you. And then what else? So
next. And Nomazwe, who is here? Please just speak up and introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Nomazwe Sizivasivela. I'm the board member. So I'm actually laughing, like I'll never look at the DR before my name the same. From today.
You are driven.
Yes.
Okay, there you go. You're driven.
You are driven. Okama.
Oh, hi. My name is Okama Ekwebrook. I'm a board member, director, and I'm the founder and president of the African-Caribbean Heritage Alliance. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay, I think those are the ones who are available today.
Okay, thank you all for introducing yourselves. We're going to get into some congratulatory addresses for some of our partners who are here. So I'm going to call first on Leah Etar, who is the Executive Director of the Alberta Council for Global Cooperation, and my former boss. Hi, Leah.
Colleague. Great, thank you. Thank you so much. As Rundi noted, my name is Leah Etar. I'm the Executive Director of the Alberta Council for Global Cooperation. I see many faces around here that I have seen throughout the years. And first, just a big thank you to Flora for the invitation today to come and listen. I've been a follower of the developments of the African Diaspora Nonprofit Network over the years, thanks to Flora, who I am so thankful serves on ACGC's board of directors and brings so much to that network that works on a lot more on the aspects of how organizations in Alberta engage internationally. And for folks here, you know that home has more complex answers. Home means a lot of places, and I'm always so thrilled and inspired by the work that many of you do. Both your home in Alberta is a lot of the conversation related to today, but home in the wider global community. And I want to bring a big congratulations to the kickstart of the African Diaspora Nonprofit Network, and a commitment from ACGC and our staff to continue to support the network and you folks that are working so diligently in whichever ways we can. The only other thing I'll quickly say is when Flora started today, she said, if you remember three things: history, heritage, and honor, the three H's. And if anything, I'm leaving with a fourth H, and that is humanity. And I think a lot of humanity has been shown today. I think a lot of humanity in coming together as a network, and kindness, caring, helping others, love and compassion towards each other, despite borders, despite difference, in a shared humanity. And so I take that away today from hearing from all of you and the wonderful experiences you've shared, and a big congratulations on this network. And I look forward to seeing where it goes. Thank you.
So we can move right to our poster presentation of ADNN's activities. Ayo, if you're ready.
Okay, so I'll do that on the part of Ayo. So if you can find us at adnn-roda.org. So our programs the foremost of our programs are partnerships and collaborations that we've heard very loudly through the conversations we've had today with the various founders of the nonprofits. So that's the major part of the foremost of our goals, is to help nurture partnerships and collaborations that deepen the culture of awareness and knowledge of members to optimize impact and capitalize on stirring possibilities. So that's what we want to do. And how we want to do it is to create affinity groups. So for example, we have a number of nonprofits who share a common vision, right? Who may share in various, their mandates could be similar. So what we want to do is to group them in those large groups so that they can partner together on various projects. And that is one of the main things we want to do. We've all talked about how we need to support each other, how we need to work together. And I think this is going to help us to do that. Our next most important job is advocacy. We want to advocate for legislation on behalf of members and the communities that we serve. That's the African diaspora community. And the next most important goal we have as a network. The next one is innovation and research. Innovation is what drives development, is what drives communities. So we want to be at the forefront of it as well. So we want to cultivate the capacity of members to innovate. It's very, very important that as we manage our nonprofits, we are also innovating, that we incorporate strategies and planning processes that can help us to catalyze our responses to challenges in our communities. The next goal is to empower community impact, and we want to provide you with the resources you need to be able to run your NGOs very well. And the last goal, or the last program we have, is what we call collective grant scheme. And this is it's a secret right now, but we are trying to develop a scheme that can help us as African diaspora non-profit sector to be able to fund ourselves. It's going to be a very creative way of raising money to support our community, our non-profit community. Thank you very much. You can read more about what we do on our website. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll be willing to, any of us on the board will be able to give you answers. So please put your questions in the chat, or you can always email us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Flora, for that. And maybe you could also put the link to the website
in the chat. Yeah.
And that brings us to the close of our ceremony today. Only 5 minutes over time. So thank you everybody for keeping within time. I'm going to call on Dr. John Ajay to give us a thank you to our guests and to our sponsors. You are muted. There you go.
Wow, what an event. It's been a very great event, and I believe all of you are very informative. And so I would like to take this opportunity to first thank everyone who has participated in, including numbers of individuals who in one way or another contributed behind. Thank you, Flora, for spearheading this event. You've done very well. Thank you, Sophia Foster, Dr. Namazwe, Leah, Ayo, and Bayo for all your contributions. All the thinking and the planning that has gone into it has been amazing. And we thank all of you. Great thanks to all our guests, including Edmonton British Council and our military for providing the financial support to this event. Special thanks to our guest of honor. He sent virtual information to our MLA for Edmonton, on David Shepherd, for his encouraging words. And what about our moderator, Rumbi? What a wonderful job you did making sure that it ran smoothly, and particularly the discussions. Thank you so much. And what should I say concerning the 4 contributors? Their stories, which is not only in print or word, but also in action. And since there are more ladies to one guy for today, I will start with, hope the ladies will help me. So thank you a million for everything that you said and everything you've done over the years, 57 years and counting. Thank you, Patricia, Okama, and Helen. You've done very well and excellently so. Your contributions cannot be measured in terms of dollars. It transcends that, and I mean it. And finally, to the audience and participants, thank you. We are all grateful to you for embracing this occasion. And as we say, when you hear the rooster crowing at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning, it is the members of CNN saying thank you. Unfortunately, you will not hear any rooster crowing. So if you hear that you're up and calling you, ADNN is saying thank you. And let's remember, together we honor the past and inspire the future. Thank you all for coming and participating. God bless you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, John, for that vote of thanks. Thank you, Rumbi. Thank you to our August speakers. Thank everybody who stayed through to the very end. We really appreciate you, especially those who came, who called in from, who joined from Ghana and West Africa and Europe. We really appreciate you all. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful weekend, a wonderful weekend, and a wonderful long weekend for all those of us in Edmonton. Thank you all. Really appreciate you all. Thank you so much.